Hey folks, MandicReally here, and today we're taking a look at this, the Biqu H2 Direct Drive Extruder system, or Big Tree Tech. I don't really know what the company difference there is, but this is the Biqu H2. Now, if you've seen any reviews of this all-encompassing, all-in-one direct drive system, then you might have seen that there have been some gearbox issues. And there have been updates, but mine seems to be acting up on me a little bit. I reached out to Biqu support, and they sent me a video of how to disassemble it and adjust it, and it was kind of terrible. So let me show you that here. I appreciate that Biqu tried it all, but this overexposed cell phone video really didn't teach me a whole heck of a lot that I didn't already know from just tearing the unit down. As such, I'm going to go ahead and walk you through my teardown, reassembly, and adjustment of my Biqu H2, so maybe you can follow along with that. Side note, I created this angled 40mm to 35mm fan adapter for the Biqu H2. That's available on my Thangs page for free download, thangs.com/MandicReally. Now, once we remove that fan shroud, we get the heatsink assembly here, and the two screws that retain that heatsink portion of the gearbox to the rest of the body. We will remove those to disassemble this, but if all you want to do is adjust it, you can loosen those two screws and make your adjustments. I'll put timestamps in the description down below so you can jump forward in the video to the adjustment portion of it, so you can figure out how to do that if you don't want to tear yours down, though I encourage you to follow along with the rest of the video so you can figure out what's going on inside of here and maybe have a better idea of how yours works. Once we fully back out those screws, we can go ahead and separate the gearbox assembly into two halves. You'll have the half that has the actual Extruder Drive gears and the half that actually connects to that NEMA 14 motor. Now, the lever on the gearbox assembly goes directly to one of the drive gears for the Dual Gear Extrusion system, and then the large gear is your thumb wheel. You also have the NEMA 14 motor with the transfer gear, as I'm calling it, which transfers the power from the NEMA 14 to that thumb wheel hand wheel, and a handful of small bearings. Definitely keep track of these as they will slip off of those shafts fairly easily. It is important for me to note that I have been inside of this gearbox previously. This comes dry. There is no lubrication in here when you get it. I lubricated this previously. I have since been having what I'm calling skipping, and so I'm going to fully disassemble it, clean it, inspect it, and then probably reassemble with new grease. Here's an example of the skipping I was experiencing. Now, with that skipping or whatever noise that was in mind, I'm going to inspect this, what I'm calling the transfer gear. It has a coarse portion that goes to that thumb wheel and a fine portion that goes to the NEMA 14 drive gear. Now, I'm seeing zero indication of any damage here, except for dropping a bearing, and overall, it looks good, so I'm not finding my culprit yet. This is the NEMA 14 motor and the first portion of the gearbox. Now, the nice thing about this is you could reclock this motor in one of four positions. I often see these oriented with the connector pointing down toward your heated bed, which is not ideal to me. I was lucky that mine came with the connector pointing upward, which is what I'm using for my configuration. But just remove these two screws and you can orient this one of four ways on the NEMA 14 as that drive shaft is centered on it. With that clocked the way I wanted and inspected, I don't see any indications of problems there. We're going to go ahead and disassemble the actual extruder side of this gearbox, starting with this big old thumb wheel, cleaning it off real quick, and then we'll pull out that big thumb wheel, which is half of the extrusion system. That is the driven gear of the actual dual drive extruder system. All we have to do is firmly hold on to this. I find putting a little pressure onto the lever disengages the gear a little bit, and you lift it out. You can see the large gear portion is your thumb wheel that's exposed to the outside of the machine that you can manually operate, and then of course you have the actual extruder drive. Now, the other half of the gearbox is also the heatsink assembly, and that has the other drive gear for the Dual Gear Drive Extrusion system and the heat brake installed into it. We just simply loosen up these set screws in this little heatsink block here to remove the actual heat brake. So if you need to service yours, install an all metal one, this is how you would go about that. Then the heat brake simply slides out the bottom of this thing. Now, the stock one that comes with it is PTFE lined with a piece of Capricorn tube that you see here. Now, as I already noted, the second drive gear for the extruder system rides on this lever with a spring behind it. All we have to do is slide that lever up out of the gearbox assembly and that whole assembly will come out. Make sure not to let the spring go flying on you. And here's the two halves, the two half moon cutouts of the Dual Drive Extrusion system that you can see cut in here. I actually see a little indication of some wear where mine might have been rubbing. So maybe that was the noise that I was hearing, and that's what we're going to try to adjust and prevent from happening later. I'm going to throw my heat break back in here with a little coating of Thermal Grizzly Cryonaut thermal paste just to help with heat transfer from this thing. I don't know if it does anything positive or negative, honestly. Just making sure it doesn't get into the filament path is my only real concern. It can't really hurt was my consideration as long as it doesn't get on filament, so let's do it. Inspecting the second drive gear from the extrusion system, I see no indications of wear or damage on this or gumming up of filament or any of that yet. I've only got about 20 hours in on this extruder so far, so not a particularly long time, but I thought I would inspect this anyway. I'm going to go ahead and lubricate the pin that lever rides on for easy motion of that, and then reassemble this thing. Now the spring on the lever rides in this little pocket here. There is no matching pocket on the body itself, but it just presses against the side of the inside of there. It's a little annoying getting it in, so what I'm going to do is squeeze it tightly and then just kind of force it in between the lever and the body itself. Once I get it started in there, I'm going to grab a hex wrench and push it down into that pocket that I already showed you into position. I give it a few quick wiggles so that I can confirm that it moves freely, and then I can move on. Now it's time to reassemble the entire gearbox. So I'm going to grab that transfer gear, as I've dubbed it, and reinstall that into the NEMA 14 side of the gearbox. It has a specific location that it's intended to go in. There's a little receiver for the bearing that goes on the end of it, a little recess, and it just slides right in. It's kind of obvious once you notice where it's cut out for it. I'm going to apply a little bit of lubricant, a little bit of grease in here, because I figure it just can't hurt and it's worth doing in my eyes. Next, we need to put the big drive assembly, the thumb wheel, down into the gearbox assembly, and it has a little bearing point directly next to the center drive gear of the NEMA 14 that is for the end of that shaft. And I'm going to apply once again a little more grease, a little more lubricant here. This is not a sealed gearbox, so I can't go crazy with lubricating this as much as I might like, and I do have to consider that this thumb wheel will now be greasy when I operate it, but I don't operate it by hand a whole heck of a lot. I'm just going to spin it by hand, get that grease all throughout there, and make sure it doesn't feel funky to me, and then continue with assembly. Now with that larger thumb wheel in position, the motor side of the gearbox assembly is fully together. Now it's time for the other drive gear, the heatsink side of this assembly, and put that all together. What I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this down over top of those gears and shafts, and I'm going to pull a little pressure on that lever so it gets out of the way and can mesh with the other gears the way that it's intended to. A little wiggle as you slide this together may be in order, and then we simply insert the screws and start to thread them in. We don't want to tighten those yet. We just want to run them down till they're just about contacting the heatsink assembly, because the way we're going to adjust this is we need those two screws a little loose, and we have the slightest bit of wiggle, and that is how you are intended to adjust this entire assembly, that wiggle. The adjustment process is literally to just turn that thumb wheel and feel for drag. It should be dragging, but it shouldn't bind up and stop turning. And then you rotate the heatsink end until you feel it's in a good position. For me, I had to turn it all the way to the clockwise position and then tighten the screws, and that got me the freedom of movement that I needed. Now here's the finished product. This is what it sounded like when I was all said and done, reassembled and running it once again. At this point, I've made the adjustments that Biqu recommended, and it did improve the noise that I was experiencing, but it didn't eliminate it entirely. I don't know if Biqu would consider this to be normal operation at this point, and I don't know if other people are experiencing the same thing. If you are, let me know in the comments down below, and let me know if the adjustment eliminated your noise or at least improved it for you. If you have a Biqu H2 and you're working on it, I hope you found the information in here useful. If you're considering buying one, maybe this was informative to you about the construction of it, or maybe you just watched this because you like technical things and you thought it'd be interesting to see inside of this thing. All of those are valid reasons, and I appreciate you for being here. If you found this video interesting, please go ahead and drop it a like. It really helps out. Let me know in the comments down below. Is your Biqu H2 acting up? Do you not have one? Did you just like this video? Let me know in the comments down below. Get subscribed to keep up to date with all the maker content, the tech content here on MandicReally. And thanks for coming around, folks.